Good morning, everyone. So welcome to another class for our AI class, all right? And today we're going to continue the basic Python. Hopefully we can cover up until part 2 so that we're not too far behind. Okay, so last time I think we end up with the control structure, and I remember like before we left, you guys write the for loop and then to print out the even number. So you put the if clause inside the for loop. And that's usually what you'll have end up doing a lot. I guess the other thing that I'm not teaching you, and then I'm probably gonna skip, which is the while loop. So the while loop is used when you don't know the condition to stop, and then you kind of specify the condition to stop later on inside. I don't use while loop that much because in machine learning we usually know how many times we're gonna loop. For example, we know how much data we have, and usually the while loop is kind of built into the algorithm, which you don't access it anyway. So just for brevity, we're gonna skip the while loop. If anything's come up later, we'll review it. Okay. Today we're gonna skip to function, and I'm gonna create a new file. So you don't have to create a new file. This is just for me so that I can type slower. Okay. So we're gonna do function.ipynb. Okay. All right, so function is used a lot in programming, not just Python. Function is the way for you to group a block of code so that your main code looks nicer. It doesn't look too long. And it's just a way for you to reuse the code effectively too. Okay, so let's use function, right? Even before you write any function, I'm going to tell you that actually Python, there are functions that are kind of globally available already. You have been using it all the time. Print is one function that is globally available. So if you write print, again, if you only write print, right, like this, and you execute it, actually this is the function. Print is the function. When I think about function, I think about it as a verb. It's an action. So this is the action to print, right? But if you only write print, this is just telling the program that you want to see what the print looks like, right? But it doesn't really invoke that action. If you want to invoke that action, you're going to have to call the function. That means you put the parenthesis on it. So that means calling the function inside. So there is a difference between print. That's just I guess the better way would be the object representation of that action. This is just object. But then if you want to call that object, in order to do something for you, you invoke it with the parenthesis like this. So if I were to do this, and again, this one requires something to print, right? You're going to have to put something inside. For example, print 100, it prints 100. So without doing anything in Python, there's already a lot of functions for you to use. Another one is called length. You use it last time, I think. Length return the length of the collection. For example, I do length. Again, if I only write length, this is just object representation of that function, which doesn't do anything right now. But if I want to invoke that action, I'm going to use the parenthesis. And inside, you got to put some collection in it. For example, I'm going to use like a list with 4 things inside. If I were to do that, it returns number 4. So there are many functions that you can use globally, right? But what if you want to define your own function? And that's going to be useful later on when we want to have a block of code that is reusable. Okay? So in order to define the user, define the custom function, we use the keyword def, this one, followed by any name that doesn't conflict with the global function. Okay, so I can do greet _ users. Okay, and right off the bat, you're gonna see that it has some syntax error because again, similar with the control structure, when you end the clause like this, you're gonna have the colon. It's required to have colons. Okay, and then if you were to hit enter, you're going to see that the editor automatically indented for you because anything that you put after this is actually inside the function. It's called the code blocks inside the function. For example, I can input another statement like print, right? And I can do hello, okay? And that's it. That's it, right? So this is the definition of the function. If I were to run this, nothing happened, right? The reason that nothing happened is that this is the same thing as when you're doing this print without the parentheses. It's just showing the object representation of that function. So like that. That's the object representation of this function. Same thing, if I were to do greet user, and I just do run it like that, this is the object representation of this function. But if I want to invoke that function, meaning that I want to execute the things that is inside this function, I got to put parentheses. And that means that the code inside the block is going to get executed like this. There you go. Okay, so try it. And also, you can write more code inside. There's nothing to prevent you from print and like doing more execution, right? We can do hello world, right? That's a mandatory words, right? And see, if I were to change this function, I gotta run it again so that the new definition get recorded, right? So I'm gonna run the above code blocks, and then I gotta run this one. See, I got two things printed out. Okay, so if you were to change the name, also like greet user 2, then you can see that you gotta change the name from here too. Similarly, it works like variable actually. Like when the function is actually another object that you can use to call to invoke the action. It's actually okay, just like that. Okay, very good. So this is okay. This is not that useful, right? Because this function only do one thing, which is print hello world. But actually, if we can make this function a little smarter, then I think it will be more reusable. So let's change that, okay? I'm going to do, again, user, right? I don't want user 2, and I'm going to go user 2, okay? So if I want to print this, I want to print the name. So if I were to hard code this, like hello new run, like this, then if I were to run it, then this function is going to say hello new run every time. But I want to change that. So I want the user to be able to say what would be the username that you're going to say hello to, right? So this will be, it's called the argument, the function argument. So this is like another variable that we don't know yet in our definition, but we are going to use it in the execution. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to use f-string. You remember, f-string is another inconvenient way to template the string, okay? So I'm going to do f right here, right? And then instead of hard coding new run, I'm going to change it into a dynamic content. So I'm going to use the curly braces and input the username. So right now, if I were to get, so this function, when it's called, you got to give the function the username. And the function is going to get that username and template into the string and print it out, okay? So let's change that, and then let's run it again, okay? So right off the bat, you can see that I got some error, okay? So the reason that I got error is that right now, the function greet user is expecting one argument, right? Because you're saying that this one needs one input, right? But then when you call this function, you don't give them anything. That's why the error is called. And then I think it's kind of, if you learn how to interpret the error message, I think you will be very good on your own, right? So let's see the error message. It's saying that it's missing one required argument, right? So the argument is missing. So let's give them the argument. So I can do Tom, right? And then now my function runs, and with the dynamic content, the username can change. So I can reuse this code, and I can do Sarah, right? I can run like this, and I can get the code to print out, right? So as you can imagine that if this function do a lot of things, all you have to do in the main code is just call that function name, and you're done. You don't have to know what the specification, the inner detail working of the function. You just have to know what it does. And that's quite useful in terms of when your code gets more complex. All right? So that's something that we can do, right? It's called, I mean, I guess if you want to say it more correctly, it's called positional arguments, okay? Another thing that you can do is that you don't have to have only one argument. You can have more than one argument. So this is another function that I use in my example. It's called, so I start with def, right? Describe pet, right? And in here, I want to have two things. I want to have animal type and pet name. Okay. So when you write the name, the variable name, actually there are two ways of doing it. Like for example, if I were to do animal type, I use underscore. That's separate two words. I think that's called like camel case way. But then there's another way of doing this, which is I do animal and then with a capital type like that. So this is called the Pascal way. So there are two ways of naming variable that has many words in it. So I use both actually, depending on what actually looks more legible, okay? So right now I'm using the camel case way, which is the underscore way, okay? But you cannot do space. Like if it's like this, then it's wrong, right? You gotta have the word without the space. So I use underscore, okay? Dash doesn't work too. Dash means subtraction, right? So you gotta do underscore. Okay, so in here I'm gonna print, right? So again, I use the normal summation in my code, but now we know better. We're gonna use f string because f string is pretty cool. So my animal name, right? Pet name, my pet name. Oh, my animal name type, right? Like that. Name is pet name. Okay. See, the way that I write this is very self-explanatory, right? Because you kind of write the whole sentence and you just inject some of the dynamic content into it. So that's why I really like f string more than just doing summation. It's kind of confusing. Okay. Okay. So let's do this. Okay. So this function needs two things. So let's give them two things. Okay. Let's run it, right? And then I'm going to do describe pet, right? If I don't give it anything, then it's going to say that it's missing two required positional arguments, which makes sense, right? You need two things. If I only give it one thing, you're going to see that it doesn't like it either because it's missing another thing. So you got to give it two things and only two things. What happens if you give it more than two? Let me try. It actually doesn't work too. So you got to give it exactly two things, which I guess makes sense, right? Okay, so let's do it. My animal is a dog, and then the name is Thomas, right? There you go. Why? What's happening? This is not the dog's name?
No, it's just very typical German names.
Really? Okay. Sorry. I have insulted your country. Sorry. Okay. By the way, that's how it works, right? So see, the thing that they mentioned is called positional arguments. Is that the position actually matter, because take a note of this. If you do another one, and then you switch the input, Thomas, right, and then you do dog, it actually doesn't give you error, but it's kind of switching the words in the output. So that's why it's called positional arguments, because the position actually matter. Because the first thing that goes into your function is always going to become this animal type, which is get printed first. And so writing the function this way, it's kind of dangerous. I mean, I guess not writing. Calling the function this way is a bit dangerous because if the function requires maybe 5 things, then you might be switching the order of the input, and sometimes it gives you, like wrong results. It doesn't give you error, and that's even worse, right? So there's actually another way to call the function that's actually safer. So you can do this: describe pet. But then instead of just writing the data itself, you actually tell them that what I want is that my animal type is going to be dog. Okay? So writing it like this means that you are telling the function that dog is going to be going to the animal type arguments, and pet name is going to be equal to Thomas, like that, right? And if I were to run this, it's the correct results, right? Because I guess the position is also correct, but in this manner, I can also switch the position of the, this is called the keyword argument, right? Because there is key and the data, so it's called the keyword arguments. So if I were to switch the order of the keyword arguments, actually the result is actually the same. So let me just copy this, and I just do it on the second line. And I'm going to switch the pet name to the front, like that. And there you go. The result is the same. So try that. This is actually a better way when you are calling function. So if possible, if it's like not clear, I'm going to always use the keyword arguments when I call the function, because I want to know what my input is so that I don't make mistakes in terms of, if it's error, it's okay, but sometimes gives you wrong results and it's kind of hard to find bugs. Okay, so feel free to come up with the new function name, and feel free to have more arguments and try to call it, using the keyword arguments. I think that's the best way. Okay, so hopefully you have some practice with using the keyword argument to call the function. Okay, so next stop, this is actually not enough in terms of using the real function from the library. The thing that you're gonna see in no later than next time is actually the function that you're using is actually required maybe like 20 arguments. So think about this, like if you have a function that requires 20 things, and you want to call that function, so typically like with the technique that we have right now, when you call the function, you're going to give the function 20 things. But sometimes you don't have, but sometimes that's kind of too much, right? Sometimes you might want to create a function that has some default value. So user doesn't need to give you the whole 20 things. But if they want to override the default values, then they might want to specify that, or else they don't have to do anything. That will be a better way to define the function. So let's do just that, okay? So I'm gonna go back to my original describe pet function, but I'm gonna change it a little bit down here. So if I were to run this one down here, then it overrides the definition above. I guess, yeah, I reuse the function name, so yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say that in my definition, right, I'm going to say that the animal type, default name, default data is dog, right? And the pet name is, again, Thomas, right? Right. So if I were to run this, nothing changed. But the only thing, the thing that I add into this specification is that if the user doesn't specify animal type, it's going to be dog by default. Okay, and then if the user doesn't specify the pet name, it's going to be Thomas by default. So if you write a function like this, then the user can simply just type describe pet and run it. It's going to give you something with the default. It's going to print out with the default values, right? But then if the user say, okay, I have a dog, but it doesn't, the name is not Thomas, right? It's named something else. I can just say pet name equal something else like Sarah. I guess that's not the dog name, but again, I can just override the default values, right? And if I want to, but then it's my Sarah is actually a cat, then I can do like pet type equal cat. And then, pet type is equal to, actually animal type, not pet type, animal type. Right, animal type, right? So I can override the default value like this. And see the way that I override the default values, I use the keyword arguments so that it doesn't matter what order of the keyword arguments I put, it's always going to go to the right variables inside the arguments. So that would be the recommended way to write any function if you can give the default values to your arguments. And that is something that you're going to see a lot in your machine learning journey. Let me just show you right away. sklearn, let you just logistic regressions. So, for example, you will learn this one probably next time. But you see this function, okay. But let me just disclaimer. This is actually not function. This is called class constructor. But think about it's behind the scene. It's like a function anyway. But you can see that the way that they define it is that these are the parameter that you can specify in your machine learning models. And you can see that there are many type of parameters that you can find, that you can specify. But if you don't specify anything, then they already give you a sensible default. So that's very useful because you can call this function and you can just say, I want to override this C right here. So I can just write logistic regression, parenthesis, and then change my C. And then the rest of the parameter is going to get the default values by automatically. So that way, the code is very, very concise. And then you can come back and look, what's the default values in here if you didn't specify it explicitly when you're calling the function. So that is the thing that you're going to use all the time. So keep that in mind when we're here. Okay. Okay. The function with the default value fine. Okay. So the next thing is that this function describe pet. It doesn't return anything. It just print, right? But most of the time, we want function that do some calculations and return the results. So let's do just that, okay? I'm going to have another function called get formatted name, okay? Again, I'm going to use the first name and last name as my arguments, okay? And if you want to be, I guess, making the function much more nicer to use, then you can give it some default, new run, something like that, which might not make sense in here, but yeah, if you give them some default values, then the functions can be used without any arguments. So up to you, right? But then the thing is that I'm going to have full name, right? The full name is going to be equal to, I guess I'll do another f string for you, so that actually, it's going to be f string with the first name, right? First name, like that, and then last name, like that, okay? And then I'm going to do return, right, full name. Let me do just that first, okay? And then I'll add the more things in here, okay? Okay, so let's look at what this function does. So first of all, it gets the two arguments, either from the default values or the user overrides. And then it constructs another string called full name, which is a concatenation of the first name and the last name. And then it return, see that word? Return. So the return, it means that it just give it back, right? So if I were to call this function, I guess I need to run it like that. And I should get formatted name, right? And then I'm going to do parenthesis. And I guess I don't have to do anything here because this has the default values, right? or maybe I'll just do something first name, right, equal Tom, and then last name, okay, equal, you know, yes, I don't know, whatever. And then I'm going to run it. See, it's actually it looks like it's printing, right? But actually, this one is returning the value back to the console. Okay. So what it's doing is that it concatenates the first name and the last name together, right? To show you that it actually returned the value for real, I'm gonna do this full name, or I'm just do full, right, equal, like that. So if I do full equal and then the function with the function call, that means that whatever is returning from this function, it gets recorded into this variable. So if I were to run this again, nothing happened on the console. But if I were to go to the variable tab in my terminal and go to Jupyter, you can see that I have full with the string, and then the value is the one that is actually the value that is returned from the function. Okay, so this is just make sure that it's actually, I guess the way that the function that, the function that return value is actually more useful in our application, because, you know, we want to calculate something, we want to predict something, the function probably have to return something. So this is what we're going to do a lot in our journey. Okay, and we can do something also fun, because I can do full name. Again, full name is a string. So the string, as I tell you last time, like everything in Python is object. And object has method. Method is actually another function that is available when you invoke that object. So full name, it also can do another function called title. Again, this is another function, right? But then it's kind of get embedded into the class. Okay, we'll talk about class very, very soon. So I guess this one, just take my word for it first. Okay, if you do full name.title, it's gonna give your, I guess I can do print here, print full, right? It's gonna do capitalization of the first words, right? If I were to change it into the smaller t and the smaller yes, right? You can see that the result is always kind of turned back into the capital T and capital Y. So string.title, it's a method to capitalize the words. Okay, so that's probably all the things I want to tell you about the functions. But before we go on to the next topics, I want you to take a look at some of the example of the things that we can do. You don't have to know everything, but you can guess what the function does, right? So that's the most important thing, right? You learn from guessing what it does. So I have the function name called sum two numbers. And that's what it is. It's just summing two numbers. Oh, one thing that can give you a really hard to find bugs. Please don't do this. Okay. So I remember that there is some of this error last time. So if you were to do this sum, right? Again, let me just do this. Sum is actually the globally available function. You can sum 1 and 2. Wait, sum, maybe not sum. Let me check. What does sum mean? Oh, sum, the number in the collection. Okay, so sum, it needs the collection. So if I were to sum 1, 2, 3, give you 6, makes sense, right? Sum, this is the function that is globally available, right? But I think last time somebody did this by mistake, though not their fault, right? Def sum, right? and then maybe A, B, right? And then maybe return A plus B. I mean, I guess looks harmless, right? But see what's happening here. Error. And this is the headache-inducing bug that happened to me before. You know what it does? What's happening is that if you were to restart this, meaning clear everything, right? Nothing, not like everything fresh, you can run this one, no problem, because sum is globally available function, meaning that it's always there every time you start Python. And this is the behavior. Sum needs some collections, right? But here you are defining your user custom function with the same name, and you override that definition. So looks harmless. But then if any of your code were to use this by expecting that this sum is actually the sum that is globally available, then you no longer get access to this sum that is globally available anymore, because it gets override by your custom function with the same name. And now your code's gonna give you error, and you don't know why, because you override it somewhere before you run this statement. So please don't do that. I mean, but again, I mean, I guess to be fair, you don't know what is available globally, right? So my advice is to make your function longer. For example, if you're gonna name your function sum, I suggest you do like this, sum to number. Like if you do like this, the chance that you're gonna conflict with the global name is very low. But something like max, it's probably quite risky. You're probably gonna rewrite something onto the global. Like, please don't do this, right? If you do this, your code's gonna break because you print everywhere and you change the definition of the globally available function. Go ahead.
Is there like a dictionary where I can look up all the
Yes, you can look at Python global function list or something. I'm sure there's available. Let me just ask global function API. Maybe I should do API. I think it's called built-in global function. Maybe global function. This one, global with S. Oh, I never use it, but let's try that. Global. Here, see sum in here? Okay, wait, this is what? Let me restart first just to make sure that everything clean. Okay, and then I'm gonna run just global, like that. This is, I guess, everything that's in, but it looks awfully small, so that's not it.
But before you cleared everything, it had the sum definition.
Yeah, it's get defining in the Python. Maybe I should say the Python, the default Python package. Let me get back to you about that, like where you actually find all the list of the global functions. I think that might be a good one to look. Just take a quick look. But I guess in my experience, I just learned by not naming the function too short. I just make function quite long. So I guess, for example, like this function right here, if you want to sum two number, like just name the function like that, then you're probably not going to get into trouble. Okay, so the name this function, it gets to I guess arguments, and it gets sum the arguments. So if you run it, no wonder, right? You're gonna get 30. So you can change how you call the numbers like that. This one's not that interesting. So see this one. So this one you are actually use this one input. So if you run, so input is actually another globally available functions. It's gonna take the input from the console. So that's why some people were asking me like why it's kind of stopped running, because input is actually waiting for the user to input something. So if I were to run this one, see, it's gonna ask for how much is that thing. So I'm gonna do like 10, and then I press enter. So it keeps running, see, like that. Okay, so that's why this function stopped running when you run it, because of this input statement. So you can run it, and then you can do another thing like that. Okay? So as you can see that you can put the control statement inside the function, no problem, right? That one's going to determine if the price is too much or not. Okay? And this one is if you put in the array, it's going to append the array into the long list. So let me just try it out, right? Yeah, like that. Actually, no, it's actually it appends the word added into all the name in the list. So that's what it does. Okay, but I mean, that seems quite useless right now. But I mean, you can come up with anything you want. It's just the coding, right? And then this one may be a little bit more fun. This one is like a game. So guess the number. So if you like change a number here, maybe like 61 or something, 62, and you run it, and then you go here. So this one actually uses a while loop because, again, this is a guessing game and we don't know when we should stop. Like we don't know how many times we want to loop this. So the while loop is quite appropriate in this case. Okay, so you can play around with guessing. So I'm going to set a number and they say, smaller, I'm going to go higher, something like that, right? If I do 62, yeah, correct. So you can kind of create some logics using the functions, like put all the logics into the function, and you can call the function to kind of start your game, for example. Okay, so just kind of play around to see, you know, like what's possible with functions. Or you can write your own functions too, that's fine. And in the meantime, I'm probably going to look up the global functions for you. I got it. It's built-in function right here. So let me just send you. Okay, the way to access it, just type built-in functions in Python, and you can see the list. Okay, so let me show you built-in functions in Python, and here they are. It looks awfully small. I'm quite surprised. Some is in here, so it is what it is. Okay, so that's not a lot. Okay, so which is kind of useful.
I cannot access this list through the Python program, right?
You can. So let me show you. For example, like slides, like you can do slides and you can read. Okay, so slide is we're gonna slide the array. So I can restart my notebook, right? And I haven't defined anything, but I can call slides right now. If I were to do slides object, I gotta do stop slide start. I don't know what I should do. Let's do that. Does it give me error? I don't know what it does actually. I never use it. Yeah, like in my coding experience, I never use slides. You gotta step none. Maybe if I were to do slides, let's see what it does. Like 0 to 10. Interesting. It's slice object, data return slice object. It has something to do with like iterating the list or something. Never use it. Yeah. So something like that. Yeah. So I guess there's not many. So I guess you should be fine. Like I only use like length, maybe sum. I don't use sum. Max probably okay. Like usually I use like int and string to change a variable type. That's probably it. Yeah, I never know that it's actually quite small list. I thought it was like really long list. Okay.